Good?
All good.
Cool. Hi everyone, welcome to another FS Elite interview. I'm joined by Microsoft and Asobo. So we got Jorg and we've also got Seb. So we're here at FlightSimExpo. Welcome, how are you finding it?
I think it's wonderful, really. There's a warmth to the community that I thoroughly enjoy. It's somewhat unexpected. It's our first time in a dedicated flight simulation event, and just the passion that is everywhere. It's great. Seb?
Yeah, no, this is my first time here. I really love it. Really love it. I'm gonna come back. It's so, yeah, love talking with all the people who have the same interests and yeah, feels like home almost. Yeah.
Is it quite a different vibe, or do you get different questions being a dedicated flight simulation place as opposed to more like the gaming environments where maybe you've shown this off before?
Very specific technical questions. Yeah. Surprisingly, but I love the subjects. Really interesting. Yeah.
Is that the same for you, Jorg?
I mean, the creator community is here too, right? So in a gaming show, it's just consumers. They have a consumer perspective. Here, it's almost like a co-dev thing. Like, hey, we need this, you know, and it's lovely, right? Because it feels like these are the consumers of our platform, not the consumers of the sim, and that's different. It's actually very useful.
And in terms of like are you getting a lot of people like coming up and saying thank you so much for building this new world, and like does that make you feel really good and motivated about, and also the feedback about what you're going to implement in future updates and all that stuff?
I think it's humbling, all these people that come up. It's like, I mean, you know, yes, we're the heads, but there's a huge team working on this, right? So I will channel this back to the team when we get home.
Yeah, same. I think it's very, how do you say it, touched?
Yeah.
Feel touched, yeah. And makes me feel very comfortable with the people talking about all the subjects, yeah.
Well, just from my perspective, it's fantastic to see you guys here. You've got such a big setup as well. Lots of different stuff going on. It's just fantastic to kind of have that here. So, yesterday you did your presentation. Thank you very much for doing that and sharing all of the all of the history. So the current sim, as you now refer to it as 2020, and I'm in the same boat. I've never called it 2020, but everyone seems to kind of just do that.
Exactly.
But now it seems easier to do that. Texas, new city update, and also the Ford that came out yesterday. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you chose those particular things to release?
Well, so Evan asked me, the organizer of FlightSimExpo, at least the person I talked to, said, hey, can you announce something? And I said, well, sure, but I knew that we would announce the new simulator 2 weeks earlier. So I basically said, okay, I need to come up with something. And we had been working on a number of cities, of course, but as you can imagine, and I felt that doing something in Texas is appropriate. The Ford Tri-Motor is another thing which we had been working on for a while with Airplane Heaven, and it felt like it fits this. We actually tried to get the EAA Tri-Motor down here, but they're on the East Coast somewhere, right? So we could have had flights in the Tri-Motor and stuff like that. That'd be cool. And then we announced that's what we had planned, the Stratoliner, which is also next week. It's a wonderful aircraft. But yeah, I mean, I think it was, we felt like we wanted to give something back. That's why we made the Tri-Motor free for a week, right? And those types of things. We feel part of the community and we want to give back. That's really it.
Awesome. So you mentioned it, can't not talk about 2024. I know there's still plenty of content still to come for the current version, but let's just ask a few questions on it. Why announce it now, so far in advance? Is that part of just kind of the building up interest and stuff into it, and you're ready to show it off with all that new technology?
So the answer is, good question. Actually, you're the first to ask that question. We're a platform, and in the platform you need to give the people that work on the platform enough time to actually do something with the platform. So we thought a lot about, we knew 2024 is when we're going to launch, whenever that exactly is next year. We actually don't know. It comes down how the flighting will go, etc., etc. But we know that the creator community needs to have enough time to make adjustments. And so giving people a heads up is just a heads up, and at some point there will be an SDK update, and then all the devs out there can go look at it, adjust their creations or not. It's up to them. them, but at least they have enough runtime. So that's why a year and a half before launch is the right time.
Awesome. So I think when that was announced originally, a lot of the initial comments were, oh, this is just going to be paid DLC, it's not going to be a whole new platform. Yeah. So I wondered if, Seb, maybe you can talk a little bit more about the technical aspects that are going to be fairly new, and actually what makes this worthy of adding like a whole new game to the world.
Yeah, so there's a lot of architectural improvements, and we keep track of all the bugs and wishes, and there was some areas, some things on that on these lists that we kept pushing back because they require too big architectural changes, right? We were doing smaller and smaller things, and something like making it possible that the installation is much faster, that you don't have so much space on disk, and also the flight model. There was a lot of improvements, and basically we added helicopters, we added 16 engine supports, and just in the previous architecture it made it just get bigger and bigger and heavier and slower, and with all the new requests, like people wanted to have a completely free surfaces to control. There was some airliners have spoilerons and ailerons, and sometimes at faster there's 2 ailerons and very complex control surfaces, and adding these on the old architecture would just have gotten so heavy, right? And in the new architecture it's very flexible, it costs only what you need. It's already currently 4 to 5 times more performant, and we're aiming 10, completely moved away from the main thread. So this is big architectural changes, which adds a lot more power to the community to create, but which is very long, takes some time to test, and requires profound changes in the architecture. And so these required a new, really big update, new version of the platform.
So you mentioned about, sorry, did you ask?
Well, I'll say something about data, because people oftentimes they say, oh, flight sim, it's like a world simulator. Let's add this, let's add that, let's add boats, let's add whatever. And at some point or another, the more actually fights a platform, right? So when Seb says that about the simulation, the same is true for data. And so basically getting the client thinner and uploading more and more to the cloud is the way to actually keep it open and expandable.
Excellent. So you touched on a little bit about the creator community, giving them plenty of time in order to prepare themselves for 2024. I know in the blog post you said that the vast majority of add-ons currently will be compatible, and there may be some exceptions along the road. For a third party, is there going to be a lot of work in order to bring that across, or is it fairly simplistic? What can you tell us about that, so they can kind of have a bit of peace of mind?
I'll go first. Right. So I would say, as always, you can go as far as you want to go, right? That's fundamentally the truth. So the airplanes and airports will work currently, and if you want to take it further and take advantage of the new functionality or new rendering techniques or new materials or new flight models, then you have to do a little bit of work. But it's measured, and we don't have a date yet when the SDK is going to come out. Obviously, we are keen to get it out in people's hands. Yeah. We hope it's going to be this year, but then people can go wild, and it's also needed for us to get feedback. But Seb.
I'm going to give a very simple example, right? Let's say you have a dual-wing airplane, right? And in MSFS 2020, you had to hack it and make one wing, put it sort of in the middle, maybe twice as big, and that's how you did it. And in 24, you can have as many wings as you want. And so if you have that add-on, it's still going to work. But if you want to take advantage of being able to do 2 wings, you have to do the adjustment and add a second wing, make the first one smaller. It's actually very easy to do. I did it on the pits to test. Took me an hour. Okay, it's not that hard, but it's still an adjustment, right? Which requires an update if you want to take advantage of the new features.
Cool. Maybe a couple more things. We're adding to our object library by a lot. Yeah. So that our goal is to make it more, frankly, cheaper and faster for people to create content. Like for an airport maker, for example, when you listen to them, they all say, well, I had to model this aircraft and this tanker truck and this and this and this and this. So I asked a lot of them, I said, how can we help? And they said, just put more things into the base sim that we can use. So we're building a bunch of things. So it'll make them cheap, faster that way. And then as far as work, I think on the activity system, it's open for third parties. They have to do a little bit of work, right? Because otherwise you could have like infinite cargo load capabilities. That would kind of, it would be cheating a little bit. But it's all not a massive amount of work.
Yeah. Something else that really struck me about what's to come in 24 is also what you were talking about yesterday about, like, you've got animal herds, you've got tornadoes, you've got storms. So now the environment feels so much more and more alive. Is that type of thing going to be static in certain areas, or is that quite a dynamic thing that is all happening in the world? And one day we're going to fly through states of America and like suddenly see
I give this one to Seb.
So we're trying to build everything to be, how do you call it, like a native emergent thing in the world, and not create a mission, edit a mission, put an elephant in the middle, and then, because if we do it this way, it's not very future-proof, right? We're only gonna have so many missions, and then people are gonna run through, and then what? And so the goal is really to have something that's worldwide. The world is still big,
yep.
And so to populate the world with content and missions, so that there's a lot more, like it's really more future-proof. And going back to what Jorg says, he wanted to add more and more objects for airport creators and stuff. That's difficult when you don't have a sim that is more in the cloud, right? Because then your client gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Every time you want to add a new fuel truck or whatever, you have a bigger client. And so with the new architecture, that we open up the possibility to do that, actually. Yeah.
Maybe one more thing. Like, so we feel actually, I personally feel that, and we also talk about it a lot. There's a responsibility to represent the planet correctly. And right now, for example, when you land in Abu Dhabi or wherever, the ground vehicles are the same as they would be in Dallas. And this is true for almost everything. So to become more hyper-local, we have to do a whole bunch of content. So it's anyways, so hopefully that answers your question.
No, yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned as well about the missions and stuff. So we saw a whole bunch of different, what did you call them yesterday in your presentation?
Aviation activities.
That's the one, yeah. So did you kind of see what content the community were creating and kind of what they were doing, or has this always been a vision of yours in your like long-term plan?
People talk about vision a lot. Like the vision is to get as close to reality as we can, and there's a truth to how aircraft are used or rotorcraft, and it's us capturing the real-world scenarios is actually key. Like a lot of there's a lot of our community are aspiring pilots or real pilots, and they want realism and authenticity. So it was more important for us to go understand, what does a firefighter actually do? How does a fire actually propagate? How does any of this work? So it's not just what other people did. I think some people did some mission packs and stuff. It didn't really affect us at all. Like I know, for example, the hype guys. I remember watching the video of the helicopter doing something on the ocean and stuff, and it looked cool and all, but we were already way on our way designing this. Oh yeah.
Okay, awesome. So I remember at the global preview event, we're all in a room. You talk about this 10-year vision for Microsoft Flight Simulator. How do you see that 10-year vision now for you? Because you mentioned it briefly yesterday and how you're going to support the sim. And I think some people in the comments were like, oh, this was meant to be a 10-year project. But maybe, what's your perspective on those comments now?
Well, the perspective is, so first off, like, for someone like you who was there from day one, you probably remember I said we're going to do this for 10 years, which was an assurance that we will support the simulator, but Microsoft's not suddenly going away. Because there was this fear with FSX, are they going to disappear again? I said, no, we're in this at least, and I actually believe I said at least a decade, and that is true. And I would say the only thing that happened right this moment with the 2024 announcement is that we actually extended that. And then some people felt something like, okay, are you not going to support 2020 anymore? No, as I tried to show yesterday. Whether or not, I think we're going to keep doing monthly updates, quite frankly. But there has been a shift, right? I don't know if people really actually noticed that. In the first year or so, we did a lot of sim updates, pretty heavy. Why? We had a lot of feedback. Yeah. And then we had some world updates. Then we added other things like city updates, aircraft and avionic updates, and the mix of what we update every month is actually somewhat changed. And we believe we will update the base sim with a sim update once a year or twice a year. We don't know yet, right? It's sort of need-based. Like, it's also what is technically back portable from 2024, right? So there's those types of things. But we're going to keep doing aviation updates and aircraft updates and city updates and world updates, and you're going to see that on a monthly basis for many years to come.
So safe to say that people who have the current sim, they're not going to just be left behind once 24 comes out the door. They're still
No. It's, I mean, world updates to me are shared. Now, are they the exact congruent thing? No, there's new rendering tech in 2024. But if we make a photogrammetry city, the idea is it'll show up in both.
Yeah.
The world is shared that way. So that is a known desire. And then some things like, something if Seb codes something in the physics system or whatnot, we will have to go on a case-by-case basis. Does that fit still?
Yeah, exactly. One example is that when you use the new physics system, you can just reuse parts of airplanes and replicate. So, for example, dual wings or stuff like that. In the 2020 physics, how it works is every time we add something, we just make everything heavier, right? There's in 24, you only pay for what you use.
Yeah.
If you have an airplane, you don't pay for a helicopter rotor. If you have a helicopter, you don't pay for the wing. And in 2020. You pay at least for the memory, and a little bit. It has a little bit of a cost on the system, right? And so it's a question of okay, what do we port back? For example, do we port back dual rotor helicopters? Yes or no? And how much is it gonna cost? And how much is gonna make the 2020s sim heavier? Whereas in 24, it's just it's not a problem anymore with the new architecture.
Excellent. Pass the mic. I think it's fantastic that you guys are here. It's been an amazing experience to kind of see you at this show. And obviously, like we've met before and we've had these things, but to have the whole community here as well, and hopefully they've been giving you lots of feedback and asking you lots of questions. I just want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. I think you've had a massive impact on not just the exhibitors, but also the number of attendees that have come here. So I really appreciate you guys coming to FlightSimExpo.
Yeah, just to give it back, right? I said this to a few of you already. I look at your website every morning. I find it delightful. The dedication that you guys have to flight simulation is really great. And it's unusual, right? Like we've worked in gaming for a long, long time. This is a unique thing to flight sim, and it's great to see it. It brings me joy every morning.
And thank you for watching at home, and we have more FlightSimExpo 2023 coverage coming up.